Welcome, welcome! This is my very first live, so definitely bear with me. But I am so excited to be here. I have forged this pointer, as you can see here below, and I am just gonna play back the video and chat about it. And if anybody ends up tuning in and is interested in asking questions about what's up, definitely let me know. I think I know how to do this. So this is a gas forge that I'm lighting up here. Super simple, very easy forge to use. Propane, just like what you would use for a with a gas grill. This is a little bit about the setting that I have up here in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, which is where I am tonight. I've got 4 anvils, and you can see my coffee mug. I did this early this morning. And this is what we're using today, a set of 3/8 inch tongs and a piece of 3/8 inch round mild steel. Mild steel is super easy and fun to work with. And you can see that those tongs fit it really nicely. They can also hold it crossways, but that's far less stable. And I am just checking to see, I don't actually even know how I can see if anybody has any questions. That's because it's not showing me what the comments are. Oh, here we are. I see the comments. Okay, cool. Awesome. Let's keep going. And then I have this hammer here. Paul Biesler forged this hammer as well as the other hammer that you'll see in the show. None of the stuff here that I'm showing you is at all sponsored. It's just what I use. And here you can see I'm just popping my piece of metal into the forge, and that's gonna heat up. I have taken this video and cut out all of the stuff of me going back and forth to the forge, so it's just me forging. Here I'm forging the point on the very end of the pointer. As you can see, I'm smushing the metal at the very, very end of the bar and rotating it 90 degrees. So I'm only forging on 2 sides, hitting at the very, very end to make it pointy. It is especially good if you make it stabby for a pointer. And then I'm tossing it back in. This is a piece of modeling clay where I can kind of show you a little bit more about what we're doing. We're smushing the metal, which changes the cross-section of the material. And so using modeling clay is a really great way to actually practice this and see what the material is doing at the time. And you can see here I've got a square piece of modeling clay and I'm just rotating it a full 90 degrees back and forth. So I'm only hitting down on 2 sides and the anvil's hitting up on the other 2 sides. The point is not centered on the bar, but it is a square taper. What you can see here is that it's really important for me to be hitting at the very end. So I'm demonstrating in this place what happens if you hit a little bit back from the end. A lot of times folks will line up their hammer just a little bit back from the end, and that ends up really drawing the material out instead of making it pointy. And you can also sort of see in that first little bit here that you end up getting a little bit of a stair-step action with the edge of the hammer digging in. So I've got that hammer right here, and if it comes down totally flat, it sort of digs in just a little bit on the edge, which is what you're seeing in the clay there. The ideal is to travel the hammer down, but to travel it down at a little bit of an angle so that we're not digging that near edge in. And you can see that in the video. I love how we're duetting with Past Me. The wonders of technology. Alright, and so now we're transitioning over to using a guillotine tool, which you can probably understand why it's called that. This is a guillotine tool that fits in my hardy hole, hardy holes being the square hole on the anvil. This is the original interchangeable tool set, so I can run it in either direction. And what I'm going to do here is just lift it up, set it down, and hit on the top die there. And what that does is I have two rounding dies in there, so it's going to basically squish the material evenly from both sides. So I have a piece of clay here. Let's see if this captures it. It's basically going to squeeze it from both sides, and then I rotate it 90 degrees and squeeze it from both sides again. And that's going to isolate a mass. And on our particular case, we're isolating the blade from the handle. Basically, at this point in the project, I need to know where the blade ends and the handle begins, because I'm going to treat those two different parts of the metal very differently. So I'm coming back in to take it down just a little bit further. If I remember correctly, I didn't actually have it squished in very evenly on both sides. I think as I was doing it, my piece of metal rotated just a little bit in my tongs, so it wasn't a very even drawing down. And that ended up meaning that a little bit later on, I have to come back in and make sure that everything is sort of straight at this section here. Now what we're doing is we're talking a little bit about using the peen of the hammer. As you can see here, using the peen of the hammer can spread the material widthwise or can make it go lengthwise. This is how we move the material with a lot of speed and precision. And I am getting a very, very interested puppy dog. Come here. Come here. This is Cash. Come here. Can you say hi? Cash is very lonely because his papa has gone on a trip today, and so he is snuggling right by me, and he wants to be center of attention. He actually shows up a little bit on the videos that you'll see here a little bit later on. But so what we're talking about here is using the peen of the hammer to draw that material out with a lot of speed and precision. And that's especially useful for us as we get into working in the handle. I just need to draw that handle back a little bit so that I can really isolate what part is going to be the blade and what part is going to be the handle. So you can see if I hit diagonally, it moves the material in a really interesting way. I really like using the clay to sort of get a sense for really what's happening with the steel. And in this particular case, you're seeing that if I'm trying to draw that material lengthwise, my hammer hand is right over the hot stuff. This is why having a diagonal peen hammer is really, really helpful. That puts the peen in exactly the right position, and it keeps my hand well away from the hot stuff. I really like the double diagonal peen hammers because they offer both allowing me to draw widthwise and to draw lengthwise in one hammer. It really solves a lot of problems by making it all in one hammer. And so what you'll see here is I'm using this 1 pound double diagonal peen hammer to draw out the handle just a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to make my material square from round, and it's going to make it a whole heck of a lot longer and thinner. You'll see that I'm working from two sides. The anvil is hitting up on the other two sides, right? Equal and opposite action. And this is where we get our cameo of Cash. This is him in the shop. We've got him sort of set up on a leash there so he doesn't get too close to any of the hot stuff, but he sure likes to be center of attention at times. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking that blade and I'm starting that process of making it a little bit thinner and wider. I'm just flattening it out just enough so that then I can come back in and do those bevels. It's very helpful if I get a nice even thickness here because it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier for me to smush it out evenly as I'm going. Oh, da puppy dog! I have in stereo. This is fantastic. He's such a cutie pie. Aww. So I'm showing you now in the clay, I'm hammering down on the diagonal. So where my point was off to one corner, I want to make sure that my point is now symmetrical on the diagonal. And I'm hitting down to flatten to just sort of say, okay, this is the top, this is the bottom, and we're going to start drawing out the sides, forming a bevel. That's a little hard to see from this angle, but what I'm doing there is I'm coming in and landing the hammer at an angle on the anvil so that I'm getting that really nice bevel on the edge of my pointer blade. And I'm doing that at two opposite angles on either side of the anvil to get those different, to get the bevels on either side. And what I'm doing right here is I'm holding it up on the edge to sort of be able to read that material. What I mean by reading the material is that if I'm hammering down on one side, I want to be able to see if the thickness of my material is relatively even, because that means then that I've landed that hammer relatively evenly throughout. If it's not relatively even, that means that I've landed my hammer a little bit heavier in one spot, or maybe missed a spot or two, and so I want to like really come back and make sure that it's all evened out. But what's really neat about that is that we have a really good analogy here. If you've ever tried making your bed, and say you've got the comforter on the top of the bed, but your sheet's gotten a little bit messed up. If you flip the comforter back, you can take a look at the edge of the sheet as it runs alongside the bed. Now, if it's all even, all the way around, that means that it's probably pulled evenly across. But if you notice that there's a little section where the sheet doesn't come down quite as far, you can sort of guess that somewhere in there there's sort of a lump of fabric, and you'll need to sort of pull on that sheet to make it all even across the edge. That's sort of what I mean when I say I'm reading the metal. I'm looking for evenness. If it's even, we don't generally have problems. If it's not even, we've got to go investigate a little bit further. So let's go a little bit further on that. And I hope that the audio is okay. I tried streaming on Twitch this morning, and I'm pretty sure that the audio was so terrible. So I hope that if you are listening to this, that you are actually able to listen to it. That's really challenging when the audio isn't good. I've got a microphone on its way, but it is not here today, and I wanted to get this streaming done today to just make sure I didn't forget what I was looking at here. So as I'm going back and forth and just sort of checking those edges. Let me see if I can get that to be just a little bit bigger so we can really see what's happening there. I think, yeah, so you can see as we roll it up on the edge, that side's just a little bit thicker than the other side was. And that is a thing that you develop an understanding of over time, right? The first time you get out to smush some metal around, it is not going to be the most obvious thing in the world to just look at, your piece of metal and go, oh, there's something wrong here, or everything's going fine. This is a skill that we develop over time. But the fastest way to develop that over time is actually to hold it up on edge and then to rapidly flip between one edge and the complete other edge so you can compare what you're looking at. Because if you're just looking at one side, you don't necessarily know if just that one side is fine or whether both sides are okay. Flipping it back and forth can really help you to see what you're missing. Let's take it just a little bit further. So I'm flipping it rapidly back and forth. You can see there that I've got, let's scoot back. I'm going too far. You can kind of see there, I wish this was incremental. You can see there that the right side seems to be pulled out a little bit further than the left side is relative to where that center line is. And that's a good indication that that probably the edges are not going to be super even. I'm going to guess that the right side, like as we're looking at it, the right side edge is going to be a little bit thinner and the left side edge is going to be just a little bit thicker, because it looks like I haven't popped that left side out. And actually, I'm recognizing that I'm backwards, so the left side hasn't been popped out quite as much as the other side has. Left and right rotation. I will catch on. Alright, let's go a little further. So pulling it out again. This is a part that takes quite a bit of time. We're pulling that side out that wasn't quite as popped out as the other side was. When I teach this in my classes, Oh, and it looks like that side got way popped out and the other side hasn't caught up. Sorry, I got all excited there. But listen, when I teach this to my students in my classes at Miss Caitlin's school, I usually want folks to have a certain amount of experience in blacksmithing already. I want to see that they know how to read the metal. I want to see that they're familiar with the sort of patience that it takes to craft something like this. And I want them to be engaging at a level where they're not like super frustrated right off the bat, that this is not looking, absolutely perfect the first time out the gate. This does take a little bit back and forth to just sort of get that all figured out, right? And gosh, I've been teaching these for a decade now, and even teaching them for a decade, there's just little differences that I personally, as a human, bring to the anvil every day, which means that there are some times that I'm coming in and my hammering is wildly off. And there's some days that I'm coming in and my hammering is on point. And some days that I have more patience than others. So it's really, it's not indicative of skill necessarily to have good days or bad days, but I've been doing this long enough that I'm not so frustrated that I'm going to burn everything down just because it's not going well for me. I know that it takes a little bit of patience. And so when I'm teaching this to other students, I really want to make sure that that we're working from a place of you know, feeling pretty comfortable and confident in what's happening, so that they're not worried if something goes a little bit awry, you know. So it looks like I've switched something up and I've been talking to you, so I have no idea what's happening now. So let's just see. Oh, we're still working on it. Coming in. Oh, we're working, it looks like we're working here with the rounded face hammer. And I do recall that I swapped them out. One of the interesting things about doing this is that, man, I did this, it took 78 individual shots. Or at least I ended up with 78 individual, here we are. I took 78 different camera clips and edited them all together without all the running back and forth to the forge. And so there, I think there is a couple of places where things are a little bit out of order. But what I am going to be showing you here is that there is a flat-faced hammer, and then there's a hammer that has a little bit of a curve to it, a little bit of a rounding hammer. And the rounding hammer works really well to sort of pop out little sections of the metal that aren't as even. And so it's a little bit like, if we go back to that metaphor of, you know, your bed sheets being kind of tucked into the corner there, that if you reach in and sort of pinch it and pull that sheet out, that's sort of what we're doing with that rounding hammer. We're using the rounded face to sort of press up against the anvil and push that material out just a little bit. And so it does help to sort of even things out if it's not going completely evenly. And I was having a little bit of difficulty with this totally flat-faced hammer, getting it completely even, because this is not the hammer I use on a daily basis. And so I did have to swap it out to make sure that I got what I was looking to get. I love that you can see the glow of the hot metal as I'm approaching the anvil. Nice. So what we're seeing here is that I've got a pretty good bevel on one side here, and I'm flipping around. I'm working from both sides as I go, because if I hit from one side predominantly, it's going to end up sort of making the metal curve away from the side that I'm hitting on. Ah, and there's Cassius! What a good boy! He's now asleep over here, so yeah, and getting on in there, pulling that out just a little bit. It looks like, I think he needed some attention. Aw, baby dog. Yes, good puppy. I think the last thing I saw on the pointer is that the little section where the pointer and the handle meet is a little bit off at that moment. So I was taking it over to the vise to tap that down. So I'm holding on to part of it and I'm hitting in the middle to sort of get it to even out. It's not off by a lot, but man, it makes a huge difference. And we're switching tongs. I've been using Tom tongs. I really like their quality. Again, not sponsored, but switching from the sort of standard 3/8 inch to something that can hold that blade just a little bit better is really nice. And I'm back here using the 1 pound double diagonal hammer, which sort of it's a wonderful hammer for drawing things out. Helps move things rapidly easily. I'm working from, well, it actually looks like I was working from all sides there. Oh, I must be straightening it out. That's why. And I'm just hitting here, I'm hitting down, and then I'll rotate it over and hit down again. And that's just to sort of get a nice, even drawing out. What you'll see as we're going is that will end up curving the material quite a little bit, because as I'm hitting, two things are happening. One is that I'm pressing those atoms down, they're hitting the anvil, and then they don't have any place to go, so they go along the backside of the anvil, or the backside of the piece of material against the anvil, and that ends up bending the piece up. And the other thing is that as I'm hammering down, the shock wave that travels through kicks it up. So you will end up seeing that it sort of bends up as we go. And another little cash break here. He's a cutie pie. Helps keep me focused at the forge. So we're really, yes, I have sped this up because this does really take some time. But I especially love it because you're going to start seeing that that material really moves pretty quickly and visibly as we're going. Obviously, I failed to speed this particular one up. But you have a sense of what I'm doing here. You can see it's bent. I've got that bend as predicted in it. One of the things we like to do is we like to forge, which is to say, to swoosh the metal while it's glowing, and then straighten things out when they're a little bit cooler, because we can straighten things out so long as we're not in danger of fatiguing the metal. In other words, if there's one spot that's particularly thin and cold, we don't want to bend or straighten the material then. But if it's all nice and even, we can actually do a lot of that straightening out at the very end of our heat. And you can see I'm getting quite a lot of additional length here. Sort of the magic hammer move. I'm actually getting, and I know that there's a clip in here at some point where I show you, I started off with a piece of 3/8 inch round material, and I ended up getting, I think, twice as long as my original material, which is not unheard of at all. And this is where I'm going to show you a little bit about rounding the material out. So we follow a process called square octagonal round. And we start off with a very square piece. We knock all of the corners in, all the way down, and then we roll it around as we're hitting lightly, which is what you're seeing here. So we take it from square to octagonal and knock down all of those other remaining corners. My hammer is sort of hitting lightly in one spot as I'm rotating it around. And so here I'm just walking down that edge right on the diamond to start making it octagonal. And then I've got a nice curve going there, so I'm just following, hitting on the diamond. It's a little tough to see. Straightening it out. Little cheesy. Just showing you where I'm at. And now you can see my tongs are rotating around as I'm hitting. And that just sort of helps me to really get it nice and rounded out. I want it to be super rounded so that I'm not worried about breaking it or worried about it bending a lot in a place where I don't want it to bend. The more, here we go with the 8-inch original bar, and you can see I've more than doubled it there. And I think I got this particular clip out of order because you can see I've actually cut it off. But I think you'll see another clip a little bit later on here. It was a little bit out of order where I've bent it. Um, One of the things about coming in and out of the forge so rapidly, I definitely, yeah, here's the bit where I bent it down. I was just trying to see how much material I was actually going to need, because I want this pointer to basically live in this front pocket of my apron. And so I don't want this part of it to be so far up that it's running close to my chin, right? So if I had that much material, it would really get in the way. So I just needed to lop it off. And this is, yeah, see, I got a bunch of these out of order. There are lots of technical challenges that I will be better at next time. So now that I've lopped it off, I'm putting a point on the new end, and then I will be rounding that out here ever so shortly. Walking down that edge and on the diamond, hit again on the edge, and then I'll start to roll it. You can see with my tongs I'm rolling it right around. And that technique of rolling your tongs in your hand is actually something that'll also be useful if you ever decide to do like beadwork and glass blowing as well. Or glass working. Oh, the baby dog. The baby dog! And man, I am working so hard to get that nice and even and really round because I want this to feel really nice in my hands and I want it to bend beautifully. We do a class on making leaf keychains, and in that process we're doing a similar amount of drawing out and rounding out. And if folks really stick with that process of drawing it out, rounding it out, keeping it all nice and even as we go, then that bending process takes so little time and it ends up being like such a breeze because you're just like, oh, everything's moving beautifully. Oh, and we're starting that bending process right now, putting the little curlicue on the very, very end, if you can see that, the very, very end of my pointer. And then I'm trying to determine here where I need that bend for this part right here. So how much material length I need for that curve. And I need it to be about 3 inches, give or take a little bit, because it ended up actually being a little bit larger than 1 inch. But I have, just a couple of little math things here where if the diameter of the circumference of a circle is about 1, then pi times 1 is 3.14. So I know automatically that I need about 3 inches to get around a circle like this. And I've got it going to the horn. I hope you can see that right down there. Bringing that right on around, and as I'm bending, I'm hitting into air, which helps an awful lot to like really get that material to move where I want it to go. Now I've got that beautiful loop done. I've got to now figure out what the heck to do with the rest of this pointer handle. And at this point, it's wide open. I don't have any particular ideas about what I'm going to do, so I just take it and whack it against the anvil. I recently did a class with John Weiner out in Washington State, and he was teaching this technique. Basically, whacking it really hard up against the anvil gives this really beautiful, very organic curve to it. I just didn't love it. I didn't think it was enough. I wanted something a little bit more. So I decided to curve it up. And unfortunately, I think that was one of the videos that didn't get particularly well captured there. Um, I did curve it up using the horn of the anvil and sort of tightened it right on up. So I've got that little curly cue, but now I've got to figure out how to make it a little bit more graceful. And so I'm trying that bend on the horn. I'm trying it with the scrolling tongs. The problem is that if I've got that much material hot, it's really hard to isolate what I'm doing. So you're sort of seeing in real time as I'm going, okay, this is moving more than I want it to move. And so I've got to sort of figure out how I can isolate that mass easily. Excuse me, oh, it's getting past my bedtime here. So you can see I'm working it a little bit with the scrolling tongs, and I just twisted it around. And I'm gonna try it one more time. I'm actually quenching off the very end. You can see it's got steam coming off it now. And then I'm taking it over to the vise because it's really helpful to have a vise around as a third hand, be able to hold things steady. And at this point, I'm mostly playing. I think I don't love that the loop-de-loop ended up so perfectly in the center of my handle, and so I'm just trying to get some organic curves in there um, that will make it look a little bit less on the nose, and sort of pulling it back and forth, twisting it around. It's at this size, like this is about a 1/4 inch diameter, and at this size it's really very plastic and easy to move around with a set of scrolling tongs at the right temperature. Of course, it doesn't stay at the right temperature for very long. And you can kind of see I'm still futzing with it a little bit, right? Um, at this point, I've got something I kind of like, but it's not totally centered up. So playing with that back and forth just a little bit. Pretty much like where we're headed at this point, and I'm going to transition to start brushing it down. Now, just as a heads up, we get into the brushing down part, which is right here. I don't have another video where I'm just holding it up as a finished product. I'm not sure what happened. I honestly think I just was like, okay, we're done here, and just walked away. But that is what we're doing. We're knocking off all of the forge scale to just sort of make it a pleasant thing to hold. The forge scale is just it's rust. It's oxygen that has bound up with the iron and the steel and created just a little bit of rust on the surface. It makes it just a little bit rougher. So just brushing that down. Ah, gravity attack! I love that I get to like watch my past self do all of this and comment on it. It's sort of hilarious. Well, I'm knocking off a little bit more of that forge scale with the hammer. There's a couple of pieces that are a little bit more difficult to get off right on the blade. I don't generally spend a lot of time knocking the forge scale off while I'm forging it, just because, like, I mostly spend that time cleaning it up at the end. And so, in large part, that was because when I first started teaching blacksmithing, um, I had a handful of very minor burns because folks were using the brush when they were already pretty tired and brushing in the wrong direction. And they'd forgotten how unbelievably hot the material can still be, even if it's been out of the forge for a long time. So I got a couple of burns with folks, and they're all very minor, just little bits of forge scale. And so I really ended up stepping away from brushing my material all the time, just because, honestly, we can knock that forge scale off most of the time pretty well just by soaking it in a little bit of vinegar and then taking something scrubby to it. Some steel wool, some wire brushes, something like that. So, hello. Thank you so much for being here. I see you. I appreciate you for being here. If you have any questions, I would be honored to answer them. Otherwise, I really, really appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future. I'm just going to hang out here for a second or two and see if there's any questions that come through. I am not totally certain if there are no questions that are coming through, uh, because the view that I have does not show an awful lot. But I'm guessing I don't have any other questions, so I'm going to call it for a night. But please feel free to respond to this and leave any questions that you have. I would be honored and delighted to get back to you on that. Thank you. Have a good night.